So today we're gathered here for the 5th time out of 6 online training of the FoodFactory-4-Us online competition, where we as facilitators, Catherine, Christoph, and myself, we take you through, as you know, so-called learner-centric and action-oriented trainings. The competition is part of the Next Food project, which is funded by the European Commission, where we are several facilitators implementing action learning in various courses all over the world, with the ultimate aim to contribute to innovation in sustainable food systems. Now, you've already actually played a great role in planning and designing this online training, because you already in the first online training, which we called the Introductory Webinar, which took place in the middle of October, we gathered you and you were split into 5 groups made of people from different teams, where you identified studies or events or papers on food biodiversity that you would like to know more about. And we received from all 5 groups very interesting suggestions for topics, very diverse topics, ranging from the promotion of traditional agricultural practices of diverse cultural groups to circular economy, nature-based solutions, promotion of food governance through the strengthening of the competencies of humanitarian aid organizations, and cultured meat and meat alternatives. You can switch the slide, please, Christoph.
Sorry, just give me a second. Yeah.
So the latter of these 5 suggestions received was a very concrete suggestion based on an article that was suggested by one group. And we're very happy to welcome Dr. Carsten Gerhardt from AT Kearney in Germany, who was one of the authors of this publication. The publication called "How Will Cultured Meat and Meat Alternatives Disrupt the Agricultural and Food Industry?" So I'd like to welcome you very warmly, and a great thank you also for taking your time to join us today. So before we will turn to you, Carsten, I will briefly just give an outline of today's agenda. So we have 2 sessions. In the first session, we will deal with the topic of cultured meat and meat alternatives. And in the second session, we will watch and reflect on the topic of bioeconomy. So in this first session, Carsten will first give you a 10-minute presentation on the article. And after having listened to the presentation, you will be split again into 6 groups with people from different teams. And here you will have 5 minutes to agree on one question that you can pose to Carsten. So it's a good idea also to agree on which person in your group will pose the question, because we don't have much time. And then finally, we will meet in plenary, and here each team can pose their question to Carsten. So I will hand over to you now, Carsten, and you can share your thoughts, and you can share your screen also. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed, Lina. And also thank you very much, Catherine, Christoph, and to the whole team for having me today. As you can see, I'm in my home office, which is in Wuppertal. That is an industrial town in the vicinity of Düsseldorf in Germany. So a couple of words on my background. I'm a physicist by training, and then moved into consulting some 23 years ago. I'm a partner with Kearney in the Düsseldorf office, and my focus is on sustainability, functionally and industry-wise. I'm working a lot in agriculture and in the chemical industry. This actually stirred my interest in artificial meats, and while I'm pulling up the screen, I will just give you some background. Why did I come up with such a study, or why did I propose that to my international colleagues? Actually, it was because, and now I hope you can see my screen. Say if you cannot, otherwise it should be
perfect.
We see it.
Okay, excellent. So I have been to Silicon Valley many times in the past 8 years, and every time when I was there, I went to one of the burger bars to try the Impossible Burger, which is one of the novel vegan burger brands. And I tried it for the first time like 5 years ago, and I would say, yeah, you can eat it with a lot of onions and ketchup, then you will not tell the difference. But I tried year after year, and round about 2 years ago, I tried, I think, for the 4th time, and then I realized it had really substantially advanced, and I personally could no longer tell the difference between this novel vegan and a traditional burger. And that finally drove me to look into that in more detail, and that is why we put together this study that I'm now going to speak about and published it in the middle of 2019. Very briefly, looking into actually one of the main triggers. Why does it make sense to look into protein alternatives? And this is obviously the huge amount of global harvest production that is going into feed. So it is almost half of the production on our global fields that is ending up in feed. You can see it is here 46%. So overall, the production in wheat, maize, rice, and the other staple crops is around about 3 billion per year. And next to half of that is ending up in feed. Then we have a couple in others, something going into biofuel, and it is only 1/3 that is ultimately directly ending up in food. So huge consumption of field produce by feed. And you are very well aware of all the problems associated with that. So it is the shrinking number of hectares, it is prognosed population growth, it is all the negative effects on biodiversity, vanishing soil fertility. So we need to do something about this huge amount that is ending up in feed. And there has been discussion about alternatives to meat long ago, and you can see that in the diagram on the left. There is all the classic vegan and classic vegetarian products. There's also some insect-based alternatives. It is only that they used to have one big problem, and that was their low meat similarity. From a nutritionist standpoint, you could always say it is the same nutrients in it, but simply they did not taste as well. And that is the very big difference that was brought up by the meat alternative producers a couple of years ago, that they very, very clearly focused on creating something which is next to meat, which is almost like meat. And that is why you can see them in the diagram on the upper right-hand side. So the novel vegan alternatives and the cultured meat tastes like meat, and hence this translates into a high commercial potential. You can see a very clear correlation between the meat similarity and the commercial potential. Just a quick glimpse on what we're talking about. If I'm saying novel vegan meat alternatives, then we are talking about plant protein concentrates that are extracted from plants and which are then formulated into something meat-like. It obviously needs binders, fats, and flavors, but ultimately it is something that can be extruded into a meat or into a processed meat that is burger-like form. The other alternative is really cultured meat. That is, you isolate cells, you take a stem cell, and then you proliferate that in a bioreactor and ultimately attach it to a certain tissue so that you end up in something that is not distinguishable from conventional meat, because through the cell replication, it is true meat. Those are the two main strains which are currently pursued by the industry. Novel vegan entered the market some 2 years ago. There was the big IPO in the US by Beyond Meat. They had a valuation of up to 10 billion. It is fluctuating, but it was a big bang when they entered into the market. And what we then did is we tried to compare the conventional meat with novel vegan and cultured along a set of criteria, which you can see on the left-hand side, starting out from how much input material is actually needed, what is the conversion rate from input into final product, what are the product features, how can it be scaled, what will be the consumer acceptance, what is the probability of regulatory approval. And as you can see here, novel vegan is pretty much convincing in most of the criteria. except for the product features. The big challenge with novel vegan meat replacements is that it will more capture the processed meat part, and it will not be able to produce piece meat. That will be the big difference between novel vegan and cultured meat. Cultured meat will actually be able to resemble piece meat, and that is why we are saying in the very long run that is going to win. We talked to around about 150 market participants worldwide, and that range from regulators over feeders, meat processors, to retailers, and also obviously included the most famous startups in the area. And out of that, did a projection of the global meat consumption. So overall, you can say that global meat consumption until 2040 will grow by some 50%. That is the overall magnitude. But out of that, if we fast forward to 2040, only 25% or 25% will be novel vegan meat replacements. That is very much all the processed meat. So that is minced meat, that is sausage, where it is not so much about the structure that you want to see. That market will more or less be fully captured by novel vegan meat replacements. And the big growth market from 2030 onward is prognosed to be the cultured meat. And that will capture around about, in our forecast, 35%. So adding 25 and 35, the message is that 60% or more than half of the global meat market in 2040 will be meat alternatives. But as I said, in the long run, it will be the cultured meat that can win in the market, because novel vegan meat replacements only have the potential to capture the processed meat, which is round about 25%. Good news is obviously there will always be room for conventional meat, but that is then high quality and ethically responsible produced meat. Please do take all those numbers with a grain of salt. Obviously, it is looking far out, but from what we can see right now in the last 2 years, this is a trend that is truly picking up. And as I said initially, the big difference between all that you had in the past, so the classic vegan, the classic vegetarian products, is that the new producers, the Impossible, the Beyond Meats, they really try to imitate meat as closely as possible. And that is why they will always also want to be positioned on the shelves right next to meat. Beyond Meat will not sell to a supermarket chain if it's put in the vegan section, but they want to be right next to meat, because they state they are the better meat. And until now, they are very successful with that strategy. You can also now see a lot of white labels into that market. So it is very strongly growing. And COVID, from our perspective, is only reinforcing that trend, which has been seen so far. Maybe Line, Christoph, Catherine, I stop here and we turn it over to preparation of questions.
Yeah, thanks very much for keeping it so short also, and for your interesting insights. So then I think I will ask you, Christoph, to set up the 6 groups, and just to remind you that you will be then put into groups of 3 people, the maximum. And here you should agree on a question that you per group that you can post to Carsten. And then we will meet after 5 minutes here again.
Lina, as you said earlier, in each group, please agree on a question or comment, and also decide who in the group will speak.
Right.
So as we go from group to group, you know who your speaker is.
And before I create the breakout rooms, please remember the breakout room you were in, because for the second part of this session, you can then go back to the same room. We will create them, but you then have to manually go to that room so that the groups stay the same from the first session to the second session. So please just remember in which room you were. And the rooms should now be open, so you can join.
Christoph, can I stay here because I'm also invited to join?
Sure, I just you just stay in the main room.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody's back. Great. I hope you had enough time. I know it was very brief, 5 minutes, not a long time. Maybe you had many questions and you had to agree on only one, but I hope it was possible. So we'll start with group number 1. So this person that will pose his or her question, please open your microphone and ask your question.
Hello. First of all, thank you for your intervention. I love the topic, so thank you very much. So our question is regarding the reason why. Could you highlight maybe or explain, if you have an explanation, why do vegans who have stopped eating meat are looking to buy something that do taste like meat?
Good question. So actually, those people who are consciously decided to stop eating meat and who have already become vegan, I think that they will not switch over. It is more geared towards the meat eaters, getting them into alternatives. So, but as you can see in the past, vegan alternatives, they're always stuck in that niche of 5 to 10% of the market, and we are now moving beyond that niche. So anybody who had been a disciple of protein alternatives before, no effect, but it's more towards the meat eaters.
Okay, very clear. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mina, in group 1. So group 2, please. Can you ask your question?
Hello. So our question was, why are there restrictions in certain countries regarding the consumption of cultured meat? And since there are restrictions, why are restrictions there? And what are the disadvantages of consuming cultured meat, if there are any?
So on the good question on the cultured meat, it is so far only deregulated in a very few countries. So, for example, in a larger sense, you can only buy chicken alternatives from cultured meat, so cell-based meat, in Singapore, because very much like medical substances, it has to run through a deregulation process that has only been started. So, the cultured meat, so far, as you can also see in this graph, it is not in the market yet. It will be very soon. So we are seeing the very first steps. Eat Just is the first company now bringing it onto the market in Singapore, but otherwise it is officially not deregulated yet, because you need to prove that it will not be harmful to the consumers. Yeah, many speak of Frankenstein meat in that sense, and so the authorities will take a thorough look, and that will take a while. By the way, we expect it to be first in the market in Asia, because especially in China, there is a huge pressure on politics to provide meat, and then it will eventually make its way westward.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Group 3, please.
Thank you for this presentation on alternative meats. What we would like to know is, we know that cultured meat, it is more eco-friendly in terms of animal welfare, but we want to know if it will cause any side effects in human health if it's consumed.
Good questions, and a question, I think this relates to the question of group 2. There should not be any effects, but that is still up for investigation. So currently, from all we have heard, it will not be expected, because it should rather be beneficial because obviously you need less medication than in conventional production of meat, but still that will need to be investigated, and that is why the regulation process is taking time. But from the inputs that you take over the process as such, it's this cell proliferation and the bioreactor process. I would not expect to any problems to pop up, but that will need to be studied as when you put a vaccine or medication into the market. It will always need to be tested.
Thanks. Group 4, please.
Yeah. So our question was regarding the price of cultured meat in the future. So will it be compatible to the conventional meat, or will it be higher than that?
Yeah, so we need to differentiate between the novel vegan meat alternatives, so basically plant-based meat that is very price competitive already now. The brands like Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat, they are very upscale, but that is because they can charge it. It's not because due to the production cost. We will expect the price of novel vegan to be ending up at around $2 per kilo. So that is less than what you have in conventional production. I mean, you can get a very cheap chicken for something like $2, but not but not pork or beef. So novel vegan definitely will be far below conventional meat price. As to the cultured meat, it will enter the market in 2030 at around $40 per kilogram, and then it will compete with a very high-priced premium lean meat, and from there it will make its way downwards. So cultured meat will asymptotically reach the price of conventional meat starting from above. While novel vegan already, or the plant-based meat, that already is highly price competitive now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Please, group number 5.
Hi. First of all, thank you for this very interesting presentation. And our question would be, what crops and raw materials are used in the making of cultured meats, and what additives can be used to like make are used to make them taste like meat, actually?
Okay, so you need to differentiate here again between novel vegan and cultured meat. So if I'm starting with the cultured meat, the cell-based meat that is only on the horizon, there you have a nutritious media that is amino acids, which can be synthetically produced. If we are talking novel vegan, then you're isolating proteins from a variety. You can isolate it from maize, from soy, from wheat, even from potatoes, and that is why you then need a lot of additives and in particular binders to formulate it. But as a starting position, you can use any crop that has a high percentage of proteins that can be isolated. As I said, anything from wheat to potatoes or peas. There is a lot of peas in that actually right now. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thanks. So the last team, please, team number 6.
Well, first of all, good morning from Peru.
Good morning.
The question that our team have said is how to increase consumers' acceptance for cultured meat in developing countries. For example, as I said, I'm from Peru, and I have seen that in most of the Latin American countries, conventional meat is considered as a part of a culture. So how we can introduce the cultured meat in that countries or in that people?
Yeah, again, there is two sides of that answer. On the one hand, how can you on a short term introduce the novel vegan replacements, and in the long term it will be cultured meat. But at the basis it is the same question: how can we introduce alternatives to conventional meat, which, as you said, is deeply ingrained in the culture? So usually the argumentation goes about the sustainability arguments. Yeah, you have the climate impact of conventional meat production. You have potentially detrimental health effects. So just think about the discussion about cancer being related to red meat. It is those arguments which are around health for the individual and sustainability for the planet, which make alternatives attractive. But obviously, if it is such a cultural thing, that there will always remain apart. And maybe it is much more about that we consciously eat meat. So we eat and we really enjoy it. We don't just consume it for the calories. Yeah, I think that is the line of argumentation. And obviously, the taste, the meat similarity is a convincing argument, and ultimately the price. That is what we are seeing in many Western nations. If you take minced meat, if it's sufficiently cheap, people are going to buy it, because many people are buying only for two arguments: flavor and price. And if you get that right, you win large parts of the market.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Carsten. I know you have to leave, but thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts, and also for engaging in this discussion where we got very far around from consumer perspective and acceptance to regulation and many other aspects. So thank you very much. And yeah.
My pleasure. And should there be any questions, feel free to share my email address. And if you want to follow up, please contact me.
That's very kind.
Carsten, we will invite you to the final conference where all of these teams will present their projects.
Okay. Excellent. Looking forward.
Hope to see you then.
Thank you very much, and have a nice remainder of the day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Bye.
All right, then I will pass on the word to Catherine for the second part of the session today.
Super. Thanks, Lene. That was great, right? He was really good. And all of the teams, all of the groups, really good, intelligent, thoughtful questions. Really
Absolutely.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. So now we will switch gears completely, and we go to another one of the suggestions from week 1 for this webinar. And that suggestion was to have a session on the bioeconomy. So we will spend the next 25 or 30 minutes thinking and talking about bioeconomy. And we will follow what you see on the screen for session 2. We start by watching a 3-minute video. This is a video about bioeconomy relating to fish production, and it was made by a group in Iceland called Matís. And while you are watching the video, I ask you please to open a Word document on the side, or even get out some old-fashioned paper and pen. And while you're watching the video, you should write down some notes about what experience in the video you find to make an impression on you. When the 3-minute video is over, we will take 5 minutes of silence, and each person will write everything they remember about this one moment in the video that made an impression. So here we are working the competence of observation. We choose the moment, we observe it fully, and then we will write everything we can remember about it. Then we will go into groups, the same groups that you were in for making your question for Carsten. And you will have about 15 minutes, maybe a little less because of the time, in this group to discuss about these moments in the video. And each group will make one PowerPoint slide that is a joint effort of what was the most impressive part of this video. And then we'll have the last 5 minutes where each group will show their slide in less than 1 minute. Okay, so let's get started, and we'll go, everyone has their Word document or their paper ready, and we'll go on to the video.
Economy is the part of our economy that depends on biological resources. It includes food and feed production, as well as other industries that are directly or indirectly based on the utilization of renewable biological resources. The bioeconomy is a foundation for a future in which societies rely on renewable and sustainable resources to meet needs for energy, chemicals, and raw materials, replacing today's use of non-renewable resources. The bioeconomy will therefore reduce the negative environmental impact of industries and create a basis for sustainable future societies. Bioresources are found in oceans, freshwater, farmed lands, forests, and in the wilderness. Human resources are needed to build industries that will increase the value of sustainably utilized biomass across sectors with improved processes, innovation, new products, and services. The development of these industries is in fact the development of the bioeconomy. The backbone of a strong bioeconomy is sustainable utilization, supporting education and innovation capacity. The blue bioeconomy is the bioeconomy of oceans and freshwater. If managed in a sustainable manner, it is an important source of healthy food, feed, and bioactive compounds. Most people associate the ocean with fishing, but there is more than meets the eye. From each cod caught, it is typical to use the fillet and head for human consumption. The products can be fresh, frozen, dried, salted, or otherwise processed to meet specific consumer needs. In the past, the rest of the fish has typically been considered waste. Intestines, bones, and skin have been thrown away, with additional costs causing negative impact on the environment. This practice is changing rapidly as industries are realizing that side streams from the fishing industry should be seen as a resource rather than waste, and that there is significant additional value to be made from each caught fish. In Iceland, great emphasis is put on sustainable resource management, as well as optimized utilization of each caught fish. Typically 75 to 80% of each cod caught is used for value creation, which is high in comparison to other countries, but can still be improved. Collaboration of research and industries has created important new value streams from what has previously been thrown away. From fish skin, companies are making high-fashion textiles, snacks for human consumption, and even medical products for skin regeneration, all from raw material previously thrown away. We can also take the example of fish frames. By processing fish frames in biorefineries, companies are currently making bioactive compounds that can be used for food supplements, pharmaceuticals, medical, and cosmetic products. Fish frames can also be used to produce fertilizers for agricultural use and as feed for microorganisms that produce biodegradable plastics, biofuels, or feed for aquaculture. Producing new products in biorefineries, cascading from higher to lower value products, can also apply for other side streams from the fishing industry, as well as different sectors of the bioeconomy, improving the overall environmental effects, increasing value, and creating jobs for future societies.
Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff in that video. Let's take 5 minutes of silence now while you each write down your most impressive moment of the video and write everything that you remember about that moment. So, Christoph, we are timing 5 minutes, yeah? You see on the top of the slide your instructions during these 5 minutes. couple of more seconds to wrap up your memory. Okay, so that was 5 minutes of remembering as precisely as you could what was the most impressionistic moment of the video and why. And now we're going to spend about 10 minutes, because time is running, in groups. So you'll go back to the group that you were in for Karsten's part. And while you're in this group, you will take 1 quick minute or even less to choose 3 people who will take the role of facilitator, presenter, or timekeeper. So decide who is the facilitator. That is the person that will be sure each group member gets to talk. Who is the presenter? That is the person who will tell your group's conclusion to the rest of the team at the end of the session. And who is the timekeeper? That is the person who's going to watch the 10 minutes and make sure that everything gets done in a timely way. If you have more than 3 people in your group, the others are participants. And in your group, the facilitator should make sure each person explains what they found most impressive about the video, what was the moment they liked best. While that is going on, the presenter should open a PowerPoint slide and try to get an idea of everyone's favorite moment. While people are talking, please remember what you see on the right side of the screen, the points about being a good listener. You should listen completely. Ask yourself if you're willing to change your point of view when you hear someone else's experience. And be curious and ready to learn from what you hear. So here we had planned for 16 minutes, but we're going to cut it to, I guess we're going to cut it to 9 minutes. Okay, Christoph? We're going to cut it to 9 minutes. So the timekeeper in the group, please be sure that in 9 minutes, your group gets this task done. And the task is to have 1 PowerPoint slide that shows the experiences that people favored and what the commonalities are among these experiences. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So please join your group and take your 9 minutes to tell us what you loved about this bioeconomy video. Here we go. Okay, great. So I think everyone is back now. Super. And thank you to all the groups for working in that compressed time. You know, we are keen to start on time and end on time. So we decided to ask for 1 group to volunteer to share their PowerPoint slide with the rest of us. Is there a group? Mina, is that you raising your hand? Yeah, okay. That was great and quick. Mina,
Yeah.
Please go ahead. Can she share her screen, Christoph?
She already does.
Can you see?
Beautiful.
Okay, so we had a very short discussion, but what we saw that everyone seems to agree on is how the fish example, the example of the cod, was striking to us. We did not know. We knew that some things more than just the meat was used, but there were so many possibilities that go beyond. So that's what we discussed and highlighted in our feelings. And so that showed us the importance of circularity, and that, yes, food goes just beyond being nutritious. It needs to be beneficial for the environment, but also sustainable, economy. So I think, yeah, the biggest part of our discussion was about this example, and we were all thinking, well, that can bring so much more. We should talk about it more and develop that idea more to bring a better value. And the idea in general is very interesting. So thank you for showing us the video and have the opportunity to discuss about it.
Super, thank you, Mina. That was so excellent. I think we can squeeze in one more group. Is there another volunteer?
Maybe
Diana. Thank you, Diana.
Okay, I will try to share my screen.
Super.
Okay, it's here. I think we agree with the first group. We are debating about how the most impact image for us was also the fishing industry. That it could be like not just for the industry in general, but also be beneficial for the environment, but also this byproduct or food waste could be nutritional, it has a nutritional value, so it could fight against many problems that we are facing, like poverty or undernutrition. So we, in this slide, we have like some comments from my group about the source utilization, sustainability, a good use for food waste also.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so we're going to stop now so that we don't go more than 5 minutes over our time. And I just remind you with our last slide that we encourage you to keep your reflection log going. Christoph and Line and I will stay on for 30 minutes after to do our reflection. And we encourage you to take 5 or 10 minutes and make some notes reflecting on what you liked and what you learned about this session. Remember our next meeting, Tuesday, 26 January. It's about soft skills training. And finally, thank you all for great slides from all the teams. And we've started sharing them on LinkedIn, and we will continue to share them and publicize the final conference coming up. Any questions from the teams, from anyone? Okay. Yeah, thank you also, Christina. Thanks to everyone. Have a good rest of the day and see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks
have a
very
nice
much.
day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you.